here's our definition of literacy knowledge. So it's a huge one, and I think sometimes this is hidden. Like we don't always see it, or know that we're doing this one, but it becomes a really, really important element of the reading ropes. So to summarize, it's really those three things. And we do it as adult readers, we proficient readers, we do this so innately, we don't even think about it, right? So really, when we look at some of the best practices and with this rope, they're not that complicated, right? A lot of exposure to a lot of different types of text, right? But understanding that there are different types of text and discussing their similarities and differences is huge, right? And then obviously we have to teach print concepts, right, and text features. It has to be taught. I think probably one of the best ones to help solidify this rope is the use of graphic organizers or thinking maps, right? Just to kind of help students see what the text structure is and make those connections, and then using those same organizers in writing. Okay. And then just lots of opportunity to discuss what they noticed about how texts are organized. And that kind of helps with the comprehension. So just concepts of print, we'll just go here quickly. I'm assuming we're very familiar with teaching concepts of print, especially if we've taught any of the primary grades, especially, kindergarten or TK. When we look at best practice, it's really is about doing a print-focused read aloud. So I know we do a lot of read alouds, and I know we mention concepts of print when we do read alouds. But a print-focused read aloud really is just a lesson specifically designed to teach this particular rope. We're going to do a read aloud. I always do this with a big book or a digital book so we can point things out. But it's really a lesson on organization of the book and meaning and letters and words. So for me, the best way to show that is just kind of the prompts that I would use. So they can be think alouds, or they can be done in the form of questions that we ask students. I did them in the terms of think alouds, introducing them, but really talking about the title, saying this is where I start my reading. I go from left to right, top to bottom, pointing it out. This is the top of the page. I start reading here, talking about punctuation marks. This is a period. This is what it does. Pointing out capital letters. What does that mean? Again, exclamation marks. So really zooming in on the text. So I wouldn't do that like on a first read of a text, right? First read, we want to get the general understanding of the text, but I might want to go in on the second or third entry into a text and really look at it just from its text print structures, right? And the print elements, teaching them about captions. So a lot of this is about using the academic language of text and getting the kids to talk about it. So any of these could also be like a conversation, a pair share. It can be pointing to words. How many words do we have in that sentence? Really working on that. What is a word? What is a sentence? And those types of things, okay? And then obviously like teaching them a glossary, teaching them what a bolded word is. Really, when we look at best practice, it's really about doing, a very print-focused read aloud where you're really focusing on teaching concepts of print. And that's probably kind of one of the best things we can do for that one. With text features, again, another element explicitly teaching that, obviously teaching them what they are. I find it personally, it was very helpful for me when I was teaching to have some type of anchor chart around this so we could reference it whenever we needed, right? Okay, so what is this? What is this? What, and getting the students to use the language of text features is very, very helpful. But using them for comprehension, for me, was the key. So you can have kids label, but it's not really about knowing it's a heading or subheading. That's not really what they need to know with this particular rope. They need to know how to use the headings and the subheadings. Asking them to use and make predictions, using those headings to organize key ideas, main ideas, key details, and those types of things. So it's more about using the text features to aid in comprehension. One of the things that's really fun to do with a great piece of informational text is doing text mapping. I don't know if any of you have ever done this before, but you kind of have to come up with some type of code. So whatever your code is, And then you actually have kids map the different elements of the text features and really have that conversation about why the author is using it. So here's some sample codes, but having them mark it up and then of course use it to, it's always about using it to aid in comprehension. So how can I get more information? But these actually have to be taught because our students don't naturally already just know how to read informational text and how to utilize these text features. And then text structures, the last highlight what this rope is about today. And then I really kind of want to talk about implementation. So knowing that there's narrative structure, there's elements and informational text structures, right? And then I know you've all seen, me talk about to teach text structure, we really need a pre-reading routine of previewing the text, but really looking for the elements of the text structure because it influences how we comprehend. So if I know that this is a narrative text structure, I am going to read for character, setting, problems, all those things, theme. If I know it's informational text structure and I'm noticing in those sequence words, like right here, just on my first glance, if I just look at the beginning of each paragraph, I can see a lot of like time order words. So I'm guessing that this might be a sequential structure. And so that influences what I read for, and that helps me to comprehend it. And then if I add that element of a graphic organizer for that or a thinking map with that, that's going to help as well, right? And same thing with the play or narrative. We know to anticipate, what to anticipate in our reading. And then kind of with the Aurora Borealis, I know that when I have these headings, it may be describing, it might be comparing, but I can at least get a sense. So as I'm reading, I'm noticing there's a lot of information and a lot of description. So that helps me think about what I should read for. So I just kind of put in some, just notes of how I might approach text structure as I'm reading those. So these are just some of my teacher prompts. So if that's helpful. So this is a teacher actually asking students to analyze the text structure. So sometimes it's helpful to see that.
What examples of problem solution and cause and effect you found? What did you and your partner discuss?
We discussed that it was sequential order. And we agreed because it's one by dates and days and weeks in order.
Okay.
And there's some problem and solution in the text.
Okay. So what I hear you telling me is that you think the author used sequential order, and can you find an example of some words or you said by dates? Could you give me parts of the text that would show me that this is sequential order?
Ginger, there's an example of prompting.
In 1955, and there's another one over here. And then there's next year.
Now that you've had a chance to work with your partner and go back into the text to sequence those events, I'd like to discuss this and have you help me annotate our copy that goes on our chart. What happened next from there, Hunter?
4 long Richard and Betty were able to start their own company.
Okay, so they started their own company, and that's a new event, so I'm going to label that 12. Is this the end of our sequence of events, or do we have more to identify? How many of you think we have more to identify? Can I hear your thoughts on that? Can I hear your thoughts, Kayla?
As for Slippy 250 million have been sold to date.
Okay, and so you're thinking that we need to identify that, and what's your thinking behind that? Why do we need to identify that as an event?
It's finding out that Becky and Richard have been fixed.
Okay, so it's a sentence that illustrates for us that they've become millionaires, is what you're thinking? That they've become very famous for their slinky? How many of you would agree that Kayla's point is valid and we should identify that as our last event? Anybody disagree with what she's saying? Okay, Michaela, what are your thoughts on that? It's describing how many have been sold. So you're not thinking that it's a new event that led to its success.
I think the other addition, I think that building upon what Alyssa said, I think they would have benefited from an organizer too. to kind of map those things as well. So a thinking map or one of the organizers from Wonders, right? Or those types of things like, but what matters, I guess this is what I want to say, is that whatever you use for writing, you should use for reading. So if you are using Step Up, because I know a lot of you use Step Up in this group, then if you use T-charts for your writing, use T-charts to unpack informational text and put your notes in and use your colors. You use thinking maps, same thing, right? Because then that helps the students bridge from the reading to the writing. So I guess that's gonna be one of my main things. Then having them use the color, if you use the Step Up colors, because I know a lot of you use them, right? Let's use them to mark up our text so they can see that connection in terms of text structure. So that's one of the things I really love. So thinking maps, all different ones. So I've just given you all sorts of resources here. You know, I always give you lots of things that might be helpful to you so you can kind of, you know, connect with what you find interesting. I love having kids make notebooks and those types of things, and then obviously connecting it to writing. So I think the more with this rope, all of the ropes have to connect with writing, but this one especially, I think is really helpful if we then take that same learning. So we use our literature that we read to also teach students good examples. The one thing I do want to point out though, that I didn't say is that text structure is not always super clean. Sometimes an author uses multiple text structures within the same passage. So we want to just be aware of that so that we can teach kids. Sometimes one section is one text structure and another section is a different text structure. So it's always not perfectly, this whole thing is sequential, right? Be nice if it was, but not always. And then was it Monday? Michelle from Marietta shared this amazing resource. So I thought I would bring it in. So if you were not there on Monday, but it kind of gives you all sorts of information on the different text structures and signal words and all sorts of things. So I thought it was a really cool resource. So for those of you that did not join us on Monday. So this rope is a fairly easy in concept, right? Harder in execution. But I think it's really just about kind of explicitly teaching this and getting kids to think about it, talk about it, interact with it. And it will, you know, help them, but it's also all about bridging to writing. And then here's some additional resources for you, okay?